Let's hear about how leading game devices, engines, and AAA games are starting to deliver more energy in efficient titles. And let me just announce our panelists today. For example, we have Jiwon Jang, Sustainability Project Manager at Microsoft Gaming. Please come up to our stage. Come on. Also, Wrigley, producer for PUBG Mobile. Laurent, Gibert, Director of Product Management at Unity. Sorry. Sophie Pendaries, the Chief of Staff to the Chief Purpose Officer at Ubisoft. And, of course, Sam Barratt, our host for this panel. Welcome to the stage. Little applause. Thank you. So, you take over?
We'll take it away.
I have a break.
Have a break.
Please enjoy Leveling Up for Impact.
Lovely. Thanks, Viola. Good afternoon, everyone. I think what we're going to try and do in the next hour is give you a sense of where the industry is at and where it could go. For those that had the chance to listen to David before us, there's a lot of really good work happening in the industry. Have we done enough? Not yet, but is there progress? For sure. So I think we should be feeling optimistic around what more we can achieve, and I hope in this panel, with this great collection of people next to me, we can hear more about the direction we're about to take. We are sitting next to one of the great rivers in the world. The Rhine outside to our left has had some of the driest years forever. This is having a huge impact, not just on trade, with boats having to run lighter because they can't move the cargo that this country makes out. But also the impact on ecology is also terrible, with many of the cold water fish, such as grayling and trout, suffering, and with a big collapse in their populations. Cities are built on rivers, and I think what we're starting to see in this decade is something that we should be concerned about. This industry is not like cement in terms of its emissions, but this industry, I think, is at the leading edge of what the entertainment industry can do to play its part on really delivering a planet that is cleaner and greener for all. What we're going to be talking about on this panel today is to hear about a river, about what's happening upstream with engines and platforms, and also what's happening downstream with players and the makers of games, about how they're inspiring billions of people to think about what they can do to make a difference. What we're looking to do is just think about maybe 3 key principles that we're going to be honing in on this conversation. Number 1, collaboration is key. We achieve more when we work together. Number 2 is energy efficiency is in everyone's interest. It's better for players, it's better for games, and it's better for the planet. And finally, the third thing is around the role of leadership. Many people will not have this in their job descriptions. Many people will be very busy dealing on quarterly goals and other things they need to do. But this is a moment where we all need to be called into leadership to see what role we can play. Sometimes that can just be asking questions. Sometimes that can be just stepping forward and putting your hand up. But leadership is the difference we need to see more on this agenda. What I want to do is just share with you what Playing for the Planet's about, which is a fairly special initiative by UNEP. We do not normally spend this much time with one sector, but we think the games industry is a place where magic can be made. And what we're working to do is to support the sector to really get as fast as possible to net zero, to inspire players to take action, and lead the way so others in the entertainment industry can follow. We're also working with sports, we're also working with film and TV, and we're also working with music to think about how the leadership of the games industry can echo into other parts of the world. There are many studios that are on board and are doing great work, and you'll hear about them today. And there are other studios that aren't part of Playing for the Planet that are doing good work anyway, which is great. And so what I think we're looking to do is to think about how we can really build a movement to see what difference that we can make. One thing you'll hear about today is around the role of green activations in games. This year, for the Green Game Jam, we focus on nature, and we saw things that really took us by surprise. We engaged over 230 million players, which was 2x on the year before. But what we were seeing was engagement metrics that took us by surprise, much bigger than anything we've ever seen. And then also the support that we saw from partners such as Apple and Google allowed games to outperform what they would traditionally do by putting a theme of purpose in play. And I think that's really reassuring to show that players do care and they want games to give them the opportunity to act as well. So what I think we'll now do is just introduce the panel. And we've got a great bunch here alongside me, and I'll stop talking and give them a chance to talk. So first of all, we have Jiwon on my right, who is the Sustainability Project Manager at Microsoft Gaming. She leads on initiatives to improve the environmental impact of gaming, including the scale-up of the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit, which is a thing of magic, and many other people are starting to think about how they can deploy it elsewhere. On my left, we've got Rick Lee, who is the producer for PUBG Mobile, who's joining us from Shenzhen. And he leads on product development and overall planning for the game, one of the biggest in the world. And he leads on the research and development team, thinking about the production of new titles for Tencent. And James, behind him, will be translating for Rick today. And thank you, Rick, so much for joining us. Sophie is the Chief of Staff at Ubisoft for Purpose and Play, and she does some really impressive things at a studio that I think has some of the greenest credentials in the world, done some remarkable games that we really should be very proud of. And she's been working on driving the environmental strategy at Ubisoft and sits on the wider work of the Play Green Strike team that's really moving this agenda further forward. And finally, Laurent Gibert is joining us as the Director of Product Management at Unity. Lots of really interesting work starting to happen in engines about what they're doing on their technology stack. He leads on the multiplayer and live ops solutions and is aiming to work with creators to build ambitious live games through the Unity game engine. So thank you for joining us. And without further ado, I'm just going to start to ask some questions to the panel and try and keep this lively and a conversation. And begin with Jiwon. The Sustainability Toolkit, if you could just tell us about what impact it's had in supporting studios to make a difference, if you've started to see performance around energy efficiency kind of come down, and if there's anything that you have seen in terms of impact yet on the difference that this has been making. I've got some slides that I can show if that's of use.
Is it working? It is working. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I could take a couple of steps back and introduce what the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit is to you guys. If you haven't heard of it, maybe we can pop the slide. So the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit is a lot of text here, right? But essentially think of it as a way for us to help the developers reduce energy consumption and then thus reduce carbon emissions without impacting gameplay. So it's a very simple idea, right? Players playing the games that we sell on the consoles that we sell requires energy, and that generates carbon emissions. And we want to reduce that with efficient gameplay with the help of the toolkit. So it's kind of like a developer-friendly toolbox filled with APIs, like measurement tools and case studies from studios that built and implemented energy-saving features. And the question was about the impact, right? So I feel like the greatest impact is getting to work with these studios and them posting these cases and their learnings on the toolkit gets more studios to join this journey. And for example, we started out with Halo Infinite when they launched their eco feature for the first time in 2022. That achieved around 10% power reduction in average in certain game menus. We also have Activision, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, and Warzone, sorry, blanked out. Those two games, they launched their eco feature and that delivered around 5% power reduction overall. We also have Black Ops 6, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, that implemented their one of the eco feature APIs that we have throughout their entire game. It was amazing to see. I can go on and on, like Elder Scrolls Online, Minecraft. And we also work with third-party studios like Ubisoft. I mean, Sophie will talk more about all the exciting features, but we also have For Honor that we worked together back in 2022. We were invited to like a full day workshop to discuss what is possible in terms of energy saving. So all of these efforts led by the studios through the help of the toolkit had significant environmental impact for us in terms of carbon emissions, right? Xbox contributed to helping prevent over 1.2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent over the course of 3 years, compared to what would have been without things like the toolkit. And it's a number that I can't fathom. So like I did a little bit of calculation online, and that's around like over 3 billion miles driven by an average gasoline powered car. And all of this kind of positioned us as an industry leader in a way. We are one of the first like gaming console, gaming platform that developed games with this intention of lowering the environmental footprint. And I think this kind of sense of community that we give for the developers, because the toolkit is like for the developers, by the developers. So all of these devs who are passionate about sustainability come together, share their learnings. Maybe on the next slide, Sam, I put up a little QR code there. So you can check out the sustainability toolkit. Anybody is public source. So all of these learnings available for any studios, big or small, that builds a sense of community, and like we learn from each other, even the achievements, I mean the challenges, any kind of learnings. So I think circling back to my first point, I think that is one of the biggest impact, bringing in together, like getting all the studios to join this movement.
Okay. You make it sound quite easy, but has it been? What are the challenges that you face in getting people to do this?
It's a good question. I mean, studios are often like pressured to ship out high fidelity games like fast, right? And one of the hurdles that we face is this misconception that energy efficiency can only be achieved through sacrificing game fidelity. And as I said in the beginning, the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit is all about efficient gaming without compromising gameplay. So we kind of try to work on like showcasing these kind of examples where there are ways to tweak in order to not like disturb the gaming fidelity. And actually, a few of our case studies show that players don't even notice it at all. Like for example, Call of Duty's minimal eco mode, it had over 90% adoption rate. We also hosted a Gaming for Sustainability mixer at GDC this year, if anybody was there this year. And we demoed Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and For Honor. And this is general public, they're not biased or anything. We showed them the eco mode and the regular mode. I'm pretty sure there was a name to this mode, but and players didn't notice a difference. And we just had a blast playing the game, so that was fun. So yeah, kind of working around this misconception is one of the challenges. I think another challenge is mobile games. Their ecosystem is quite like high paced, and like getting the telemetry data is also difficult. And there's this little bit of like tug of war between who's best equipped to build energy efficiency features. Like, is it the OS? Is it the devices? Or is it the gaming apps? You know, but we're still like actively learning from their experience to gain understanding of like what we can utilize on the console and PC front.
Okay, well, maybe that's a good cue to bring maybe Laurent in on the mobile front. What do you see as the opportunity to support people building in your engine to really make games that don't have the carbon intensity that we've maybe seen in the past?
Yeah, I think maybe to answer that question, I would have to take a little bit of a step back and tell a little bit about my personal journey into the topic of sustainability. I started I was interested in, trying to make an impact, positive impact for years actually, and been looking at the topic from afar in different ways. But it's always, and probably most people relate to that experience. It's always a little bit difficult to actually know where to start. Like there is many things happening, but they all feels like way too big for ourselves, and it's a little bit difficult to actually action anything in particular or get started. So that's a little bit how I came around some of the sustainability initiatives at Unity. And in particular, what has been happening there is a number of passionate people across the organization that were driving for small initiative that we're trying to slowly bring together around a larger theme. Because something that is important and that is also at the intersection of Unity's business and our Unity customers' business is that the core market of Unity is very much portable device-centric, mobile phones, obviously, but also portable consoles. And so battery efficiency is a critical aspect of keeping players in the game. And, with a market where player acquisition is very, very expensive, users of Unity are very incentivized to try to save energy to keep the player in the games, but also as they're slowly growing and moving forward to games that are more cross-platform in nature, then they also want to have capabilities in their engine that helps them throttle the energy consumption so they can have a same gameplay implementation maybe from the same game running on different devices. So that's very something that is core to the business value of Unity in general, and it gives us the opportunity to have a positive impact because there's about 5 billion players playing a Unity-based game every day and on a variety of devices. So if we can make a small impact there per game, then with the scale of players that can make a larger impact. So that's how I came to be. And so to give an example of some of the things we're doing in Unity that relates to empowering game creators to be able to implement such mechanics into the games, there is a number of things actually that happens across the different versions of Unity that helps with energy consumption. And I would break them down into two big categories. One of them is more graphics related. I don't know if you knew, but memory transfer between like main memory and VRAM is one of the most important energy consumption in games. So like doing a lot of memory transfer is something that is pretty costly for battery life, but also in making the devices to heat. So there is around Unity 6 a number of new features that released in Unity, render graph, render passive, that helps limit dramatically the amount of data that gets shared in the device. And so that helps with that energy consumption problem. So that's the kind of things I would like to elevate from the actual technical feature into being a topic that helps making a positive impact. A second big category of energy savings capabilities that we are seeing emerging in the Unity ecosystems are more on the CPU side. So things that helps you create a better architecture game that in general, the general objective of those capabilities is to help your game basically get idle as fast as possible. So you get the same frame rate, but you're doing less work. Less work means less energy consumption, and then that means the game's more efficient overall. Some of the features in that category would be things like we released in Unity 2022 RTS called ECS, Entity Component System, or things like Burst, which is our own compiler for C# code, or things like job systems that helps better leverage the different cores of a CPU. So all of those technologies are meant to help you achieve the same gameplay faster, so that again, your CPU get to an idle mode faster, and then you get to save energy as a result for the same frame rate.
And if I can ask a follow-up, what do you think people building in Unity might start to see over the next couple of months? Are there tools that you think they can start to use to make leaner, more energy-efficient games?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of those things are happening regularly. We need to create a little bit of a, awareness around what kind of capabilities of the engine helps with that in particular. Something I'm in particular pretty excited about is some of the improvements we made to Unity 6.2. So that's actually a release we made available last week. And so in Unity 6.2, we started to simplify data collection in Unity Engine to make it more easy for game developers to get to understand how their games behave at runtime. you would say probably nothing new here. Been getting data about my game all the time. Just implement some data collection analytics in there and you're done. That is true, and like most of the game developers are already collecting a lot of data about their games. But the request we get very often is, well, that's great. I have my own game energy consumption, but how do I perform against the rest of the market? Like, is the baseline higher, lower? Like, are games in my category actually, consuming less energy? That might even be a competitive advantage for you if you're pretty good. So some of the things we're trying to do moving forward with Unity 6 is to simplify, make it easier for you to collect some of the data. And then we're working with a large number, like as many partners as possible, including Playing for the Planet or other nonprofits, to try to get industry benchmarks available to you and give you the opportunity to compare your game energy consumption to that benchmark and just find out if you should actually take an action and maybe improve the implementation of your game.
Great. And I think just to build on that, the bulk of the carbon contribution of the games industry is in players' play. And the more we can work to deliver leaner games, the better it will be to reduce the emission impact of this industry. And I also think that what we've started to see from engines and also platforms, I think is going to pick up quite a lot of momentum in the next 6 months. So thank you for your leadership. And we look forward to seeing what you do next on this. I'm going to turn to Rick now. So Rick, it'd be really interesting just to share with us, with James's support, what PUBG's doing on this agenda and how you're seeing this work.
这个问题是给 Is this working?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So 这个问题是给 Rick， 就是想 Rick 能不能分享一下 PUBG Mobile 在对应这一侧，我们有哪些可以分享的事情
OK, thanks. 就我们其实很早就已经意识到，就是说，游戏在连接这个年轻人跟社会议题上面，其实是具有它的一个天然优势的。那尤其是在这个气候变化这样的一个问题上面，许多年轻人都是非常的关注。但是呢，难以找到真正的、切实的能够参与并且感受到自己影响力的这样的途径。所以呢，同时呢，也比较少的有这种自由表达环保态度的这样场景。
Yeah. So we have sort of from very early on realized that the topic of environmental protection is sort of the younger generation very, very much are interested and they are aware of it. But the problem is they felt difficult in trying to identify areas that they can actually enact change and make a difference. So it is very important for us to help them to realize that sort of the idea of environmental protection can sort of contribute and connect to the games that they play on a daily basis.
And just to build on that, I know PUBG Mobile did a fairly big activation in the Green Game Jam this last year. Would you be able to just share some of the results of what you learned there?
我们去年的时候 ，PUBG Mobile 跟我有做过一个就是这个 Play Green 的这样一个 Game Jam 的活动。那对于这个，我们有没有什么想要分享的
OK， 其实去年我们参加了整个的比赛，那发起了产品上线以来规模最大也影响力最大的这样的一个公益项目，叫 Play for Green。那这个项目的初衷非常的清晰，目标也比较务实。那我们希望做3件事。第一件呢是号召全球的玩家以轻量化的方式来共同参与我们这个环保行动。那第二呢是让游戏能够将整个线上的行为跟现实世界当中的环保成果建立一个进一步的连接。那更为重要的是，我们希望展示游戏这个载体本身，那可以成为推动社会议题的一个重要力量。那为了实现这个目标，我们就推动整个线上跟线下的这样的一个活动，来去充分发挥我们整个平台的一个影响力。
So back in 2024, we participated in Green Game Jam, and it's one of the largest competition. And there were very clear goals and objectives for us in reaching out to sort of expanding on the overall objective of creating a better future for sort of our overall environmental objectives. And they were just we were trying to make sure that we are connecting the in-game player behaviors to the very specific actions that we are endorsing outside of the game to make sure that environmentally we are sort of setting up a stage where players can actually enact change and make an impact.
对，那特别是这里面，我们游戏中有一个 UGC 的这样一个共创体系的 WOR 模式，那这是我们整个去构建共创跟公益模式的一个核心的支点。那在这个模式当中呢，我们是跟英国的 UCL 大学的这个气候科学家 Mark Messerling 博士来去合作，设计了一张设定在100年之后因为气候变化而改变的整个艾伦格的这样的一个主题地图。那玩家呢就能够在这个地图里面真实的目睹体验极端的这个气候对生态的一个影响。那这个地图也是 PUBG Mobile 中玩家最常游玩的一个经典地图之一。那这样的熟悉感，我们希望让玩家能够更有代入感，感受到变化的一个冲击。
So in PUBG Mobile, we have a player UGC co-creation mode called World of Wonder, where players can go into the map editor and create their own maps. So one of the things that we did was we collaborated with the professor from UCL, Dr. Mark Maslin, and we created this iconic PUBG Mobile classic map, Erangel, but in 100 years, where it's being significantly impacted by climate change. So players, because of their familiarity with the Battle Royale map as sort of the central, most authentic map that players get to experience, they are able to connect it more when they see the specific damage and climate change, how it has impacted the maps that they truly play and love.
对，那这只是一个起点。那为了让玩家能够更深度的参与到整个的这个活动当中呢，我们也提供了非常多的环保相关的这个组件，在我们的整个 WOR 模式里面，使得玩家能够进一步的来去创造更多的相关的一个内容。
And so this for us is just sort of the beginning, and we are really integrating a lot of map editor components that players can use to build more maps dedicated towards the environmental protection efforts and ecological preservation, etc.
对，那比较超出我们预期的是，整个玩家的一个参与的热情其实非常高。那在整个活动期间，我们收到了超过1万张这样的由玩家自发创造的一个地图。那里面包括沙尘暴、水源污染，还有整个海平面的上升这样相关的议题。那玩家会去通过自己的一个所关注的相关的一些方面来去去表达，自由的表达，对，然后用一张张的地图来去讲述一个个又真实的，然后富有情感的这样的一个故事，对。
So throughout the event that we were running, we were sort of overwhelmed by the excitement of our players. We received over 10,000 maps submitted by our players, and they really focused on issues that they themselves personally experience. There were maps themed around sandstorms, water pollution, climate change, etc. And they were really trying to make their story, but in the game that they play and love every single day.
对，那这里面有2个小故事，就是有一位是来自中东的玩家，因为之前亲眼的目睹整个家乡这个河流被污染，对，所以他在地图当中去设定自己变成一个环保的这个调查员，来去穿梭在整个被污染的这个困扰的一个环境当中，去查明污染的这个源头，并且去重现整个青山绿水。对。
There was we were going to share 2 stories. There was one player from the Middle East, and he told the stories through the map where one of the rivers in his hometown was being polluted and sort of lost the access to clean water. And he, in the map, he created a mode where the players were able to investigate and find clues where exactly does that pollution come from, and eventually reach the conclusion, provide a lot of informative educational content for the community.
Okay.
对，那第二个故事就是一个来自南亚的这样的一个玩家，他是聚焦在整个乡村环境的变化当中，设定了一个面临生态危机的这样的一个小村庄。那他需要协助村长去治理这个污染，种植树木，然后让整个村庄能够焕发新的生机。那这个灵感是来自于他小时候就在乡下与这个父亲、祖父一起去种树、互合的这样的一个记忆。
And the second story is from a player from South Asia, where he essentially created the setting where his hometown is facing very significant climate change, and it is to the player's objective to plant trees, to optimize where it makes sense to develop better environmental situations for his hometown, and that's sort of inspired by his personal story, and that allows his story to be experienced by the members of our community as well.
就通过这些独特的作品，那玩家能够借助整个的我们的 Wall 的共创的平台，就不仅展现玩家对于环保这样的一个可持续的这个议题的一个深入的理解，也能够体现他们积极发声跟参与环保的这样的一个热情。
So through these creations from our World of Wonder platform, it really shows sort of these player stories and how our community is starting to understand the importance of environmental sustainability and the overall objective of environmental protection.
对，然后这里面我们还有一个游戏内的一个家园玩法，那可以让玩家在这里面去自由的搭建自己的一个房子的这样，以及周边的一个花园的一个玩法模式。那我们也在这里面推出了多种就是濒临植物灭绝的这样的一些植物，然后使得玩家能够去探索这些濒危的植物跟气候变化相关的知识，使得说整个公寓它公益的这个行动不光是说教，而是让玩家自己来去参与这个学习。
We also have a system in the game where players are able to build their own home. And one of the things that we did was we launched a preservation garden, and we introduced a bunch of endangered plants and species. And then players are able to, through that, really for themselves go and find valuable information regarding some of the plants and species that are facing these very specific challenges that we are discussing here.
对，那还有另外一个就是，因为在 PUBG Mobile 里面，玩家在游戏中整个的跑动是一个非常关键的一个行为。对。OK，yeah.
And yeah, so this last bit is just regarding sort of an in-game event for PUBG Mobile where players they're running in every single match, and we sort of correlate that with the sort of specific environmental efforts that we are doing outside of the game, so that there are a lot of we're sort of converting the player behaviors to actual impact.
对，就最终我们让玩家在游戏里面每跑动一定的距离，就我们会承诺在现实当中会有相应的一个环保方面的行动。对，那我们也可以看到总共的玩家一个跑动距离呢是48亿公里，相当于绕整个地球是21000圈。对。
So in total, 4.8 billion kilometers run by the players. So that's over 21,000 laps around the world.
对，所以最终呢，我们通过这样的一个合作，我们帮助巴西、印尼还有巴基斯坦这些地方落地了超过75万平方公里的生态保护项目。
And eventually we were able to build over 750 square kilometers for sort of a lot of the countries around the world build trees and launch a lot of the environmental efforts.
对，所以总的到目前为止，就是透过整个 Play for Green 的这样的一个项目，已经触达了全球的超过10亿的玩家。那同时，我们整个相关的环保主题的这个地图累计被游玩的次数超过了14亿次。对，那整个家园的保护的这样的一个活动呢，也有超过1亿玩家一起来参与。所以，我们希望透过这样的一个影响力，来去参与到整个游戏方面，在推动可持续发展这样一个议题方面。
So to date, there was over 1 billion players participating in these series of maps, and over 1.4 billion sessions has been played throughout these maps and different modes. So that's sort of the player behavior we're trying to convert and really have them focus on the larger objective of overall awareness and ecological protection.
Wow. 1 billion is a fairly large number, I'd say. And just for the Green Game Jam, when PUBG Mobile put forward the title, we thought, okay, let's see what they can do. It's a different title, and not normally one of the games we get put forward, but I think just what you did and what you showed as possible, I think was really inspiring for many people.
就是PUBG Mobile 我们作为一个游戏产品在这样子的一个场景下，我们能够最终取得这个成绩，就是对于所有整个行业还是有非常大的一个启示和激励的作用。
I just want to, I might move to Sophie just to bring in Ubisoft here, just to move a microphone over, if that's okay. Just because I know that you've done some really big campaigns with some of your games as well, just building on this Green Game kind of case study from PUBG Mobile. If you could just share with us kind of the kind of things that you've been seeing in the games that you've been making and the kind of direction that you're taking as a studio as well.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so we are working on different aspects of sustainability in games. Maybe to follow up on the content aspect, aside from green events and activations that now we have some experience in doing every year the Green Game Jam, and we try to measure the impact it has on the planet, on the players, on the teams working on that too. And it has impact. But we also want to investigate, further, considering games, tell stories, develop narratives, learn skills, teach skills, and allow the player to act, so give them a sense of agency. The kind of questions we are asking now is, what would be a game where competition, for example, doesn't necessarily mean me winning and you losing? What would that mean in terms of gameplay? Or questions like, this game, what about if we simulated perfectly the living of this game environment? What new avenues of innovation could that bring? Or another question about the game economy. It is always about possession. What about if it was sharing economy or renting? And we believe that approaching sustainability and environmental issues as an opportunity for creativity might be the right way to do things in terms of content, on top of activating the community and educating as it has shown exceptional results here. So that's one side of the business, the content, the core of what we do, which is making games. And another side of that is the coming back to the initial conversation about power usage, because yes, the industry carbon footprint is led by, the equipment and by the player playing games and using power and energy. And this is where we can have the biggest impact. So Jiwon mentioned it. We started a couple of years ago with For Honor, which was a team willing to do things. And that maybe is a key learning, not try to enforce things on production teams which have like millions tickets and things to do and priorities. And so wait for them to be motivated, educated, and come to us. And it's what we did. So we started small with For Honor by developing on one side what we called green coding, which was optimizing the code. So it's transparent for the player, but it was optimizing the code every time we saw something was feasible. And the other thing was developing the eco mode feature, which, you know, has several options, but allows you to really lower the consumption when you are in the menus or after a few minutes of inactivity of the pad or things like that. And we launched that maybe last year, yes. And the first launch, it was really low profile, just a little button there. It was not activated by default. And we still saw some interesting conversion, like almost 5% of the players activated the eco mode. And then we decided to launch a new version with the smart mode by default, and like the adoption was more than 95% of the player. So it has an impact because we could measure like minus 30% in terms of energy consumption. And when you have, you know, young adults living by themselves and paying their electricity and playing a lot, it can make a difference on the invoice also. So we pursued this type of things. Another example, and it was thanks to reports provided by Xbox, that we saw in Star Wars Outlaws that the energy consumption during playtime was okay, but in the menus it was very high compared to the benchmark. So again, we worked on something, and now it's acceptable. So we are doing that iteratively. Our goal would be to have such features in all our games, but again, it's not always the priority. And we don't want it also to be just, okay, I check the box, I put that feature, and I forget about it. We want to really develop a mindset of always looking for how could we do that better? What could we provide the player to, you know, make a decision on his consumption? Always making sure that it doesn't affect the experience, so no impact on the quality of the gameplay or on the quality of the immersion of the games. So that's a little bit what we're trying to do. It helps a lot when first parties are with us, because you know, for us it's also helps with a case study, convincing the studios to do more, because Microsoft has the right tools to measure. And yes, that's also a big element. It's always try to measure what we do, because if you don't measure, you cannot see if you improve. So measure when it's good, share, communicate, always with very humbly. But when we do good things, we're happy to share them. And with For Honor, we won the Best Tech Award at last year, Playing for the Planet. So. Yeah. The team was very proud.
Okay. Well, Sophie, you've got a chance maybe for call and response with these two panelists next to us. I mean, what more do you need to do more? What could be helpful from either engines or from platforms?
I think that what we need is, you know, make sure everybody understands that this is serious, that we need all to, you know, go there together, and by, you know, when Microsoft or Unity ask the question to the studios, what are your efforts in minimizing energy consumption? Then it starts, you know, being something that is much more immediate, and people wondering, but why would I do that? And then they start investigating, why the fuck, sorry, why should I do that? Yeah. But they start understanding, because and that's another pillar of our strategy, is really start with education, because knowledge is the first step to every kind of action.
And just to push this next question to you, if that's okay, Laurent, which is, you are at the top, the source of the river, if you like, and everything you produce kind of trickles down with the engines and the work that you put together, also with other parts of the ecosystem. I'm really curious if Sophie says she needs more support both in terms of education, tools, and ideas. Is this something that you're prepared to do? Are you getting asked to do this? Where are you at? And maybe Jiwon, I'll ask the same question of you about what further support could you offer to people like Ubisoft and others?
Yeah, absolutely. There is, in particular, something in the conversation earlier in between PUBG, but also Ubisoft that we relate very much to, which is like first part creating awareness and then bringing answers to the creatives. In terms of awareness, there is definitely like a lot of motivated people into larger games, but Unity has a pretty big role to play in the indie developer community. So something that I'm very also pretty proud of is some of the work that we're trying to do to promote some of the games that are, trying to create awareness and, create awareness with players, so that things like, for example, the program Unity for Humanity, where we deliver grants to games that are taking a positive, action towards creating awareness in the market. There's also, like in Unity, the game creators, but also the third-party ecosystem. Unity is very flexible. There is a lot of tools creators, and there is a number of them that are doing amazing things around positive impact. There is this little company that I keep bumping into at events called .eco, where they have a little SDK with a number of network of partners that can create positive impact for real in the world. And they will integrate that into the games and offer the players the opportunity to get a reward for like having, a positive action. You could plant a tree, save a turtle, clean up a beach, the kind of actions. And then the player will get a certificate, and they could trace the action up to the actual realization of it in the world. And so that's the kind of thing that I think also create a movement in the game industry. But awareness is, again, one thing, and then what can you do about it? And I think that's where the relationship with the platforms that Unity have, a lot of our core market is very much about shipping everywhere. That's a little bit where Unity shines. And so there is a lot of work like the Sustainability Toolkit team is doing, where they have best practices to maximize the best use of the platform, and they're trying to encourage game developers to build those things, but Unity has a role to play into bringing those best practices up into the engine. And that's where we're reinforcing our partnership and conversation at the moment with all of our partners, but also with Sustainability Toolkit, to try to get those best practices from the hardware point of view, and then progressively bring that into the workflows for Unity users. Do you want to react to that?
I mean, going back to Sophie's point and Sam's question, I think one of the things that we try to do is to be more flexible. So we try to meet the studios where they are, whether they're in the beginning of the journey or towards, they're already deep into optimization. And we try to provide tools that makes devs' lives easier in a way. That's our main goal, similar to what Unity provides for the devs. For example, we have this new API that we tested and launched last year called the Dynamic Power State. So it dynamically adjust the GPU level based on the rendering workload. And this is something that doesn't require any changes in the game code. So you just, there's no additional work that is needed from the developer side. And those are kind of the things that we recommend. And you spoke to measurement, right? We did this year actually on a one-off basis, but we tested a bunch of titles with the DPS enabled on our back-end side, not on the public side, of course. And then we tested it, measured it, and showed the improvements. We send the reports to studios. And then there's already a handful of studios that signed up for this. So you need a little bit of nudge in that sense sometimes, right? Just showing where they are and what kind of improvements that we can make through Toolkit and how easy it is. And I dare say easy because I'm not the technical program manager here. But yeah, I hope that I answer the question.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, Sophie, there's lots of things starting to move. So I think in the next 6 months we should see more on this agenda, hopefully. But is that enough for you?
Yes, I would love to meet again next year and have all games with an eco mode, and we'll see.
Great. And Rick, if I could just turn to you just as we start to kind of see the clock ticking in front of us. Just on Tencent's work on energy efficiency and reducing some of the power consumption, what have you been doing at PUBG Mobile? Is this an agenda you've been working on?
就是我们整体对于从 PUBG Mobile 的角度，对于节能和整体效能的提升，有在作为一个持续的关注吗？
对，我们觉得整个节能跟提效方面的这些工作，其实对于提升我们整个游戏的体验是非常关键的。那玩家其实是希望能够更加流畅的去体验游戏，同时呢，他又希望能够让整个画质的表现上面更好。
So overall, energy and performance optimization is very, very important to us because our players want the best visual performance plus the smoothness of playing the game, especially for us in an FPS title. So that's something that we have paid a lot of attention to.
对，而且对于移动游戏来讲，全球有非常多的从不同性能表现的配置的这样的一个移动设备。
And for our case specifically, because we're a mobile title, the compatibility and device performance, it varies by region. It varies. It has a lot of a wide range of devices that we need to accommodate to.
对，像 PUBG Mobile 所针对去优化的这个机型，其实有超过15000台。
There's over 15,000 different type of mobile devices that we specifically optimize for.
对
for PUBG Mobile.
所以在这里面，我们也一是整个现在的那个引擎，包括 Unity， 包括 Unreal， 其实针对这些方面也做了很多的一个工作。那同时呢，我们也针对就是包括 CPU 层面上面，就是一些动画方面的一些处理，还有就是它 GPU 层面渲染材质这些东西的一个处理，做了非常多的一个优化。
So our game runs on Unreal, and that we for that specifically from the engine side as well, we look into CPU optimization, GPU, especially on sort of the energy intensive part of the game, such as animations and movement. We really focus in and see where we can optimize there.
对，就通过这些工作会达到刚刚玩家所想要的这样的一个体验效果，同时呢，也会让整个体验玩游戏的过程当中会更加的节能。
So through that, we can get to a place where the players are satisfied with the content and get an overall better performance and more energy efficient gameplay experience.
Okay, that's great. That's great, brilliant. Okay, with just a few minutes to go, I just wanted to ask a question of all the panelists just about where they think this industry could get to maybe in, say, 5 years' time. There has been progress. Is it fast enough? I'm not sure. Should there be more of it? I think so. But just to pass, maybe if you don't mind, Rick, if I can pass these microphones down, just to start with Sophie. Where would you like to see this industry in 5 years' time? What more could be done, should be done?
Oof, 5 years. Eco mods everywhere should be no-brainer. The way we produce games should also integrate more sustainability criteria. And the games we play and our children or grandchildren play are the ones that design a desirable future.
Great. Laurent?
I think it's going to depend on how well creatives and engines and platforms get to work together. If we can find a way to quickly align our initiatives and efforts in a way that enables the next generation of productions to jump on the train, it's going to happen very fast. It's actually like most of the games are being in production in between, 18 months to 2-3 years. So in 5 years' time, it is for sure almost every studio is going to have shipped, their game they're working on and going to jump on the next one. So if we can try to align our actions between the different parties here in the game industry in a short amount of time, couple of years, we should be able to get a generation of games that all take into account energy consumption at a wide level.
Great, thanks, Laurent. Jiwon?
I mean, to what Sophie and Laurent just mentioned, I think eco mode or energy efficiency being part of the way we make games, like, localization, it being like an obvious part of us making games. That's one thing. You did mention about the mobile games, how like we have a huge opportunity for the players, how player experience there as well, right? The players get to play their games longer, lowered energy bills, and so on. So giving that players that choice, whether it being them being able to choose energy efficient games or choose eco mode and so on. So giving the players a choice so we can all do something together. Also staying proactive in terms of regulations, for example, like the gaming console voluntary agreement, it's currently on hardware, but it could easily be on software as well. So like being proactive and not waiting for something like that. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jiwon. And Rick, 5 years' time, I'll just pass this to James. Where do you think the industry could be from a position from where you sit with PUBG Mobile?
我们其实发现，通过 PUBG Mobile 在全球的流行，游戏已经成为很多人，特别是年轻一代，他的一个生活当中的一部分。对，所以我们希望能够好好的借助游戏这样的一个媒介，来去凝聚所有这些环保方面的一些共识，从而来去推动游戏在环保影响上面的这样的一个力量。对。
So through the popularity of PUBG Mobile, we see that it has really become a part of daily lives of many players around the world. So we believe we must utilize the games that sort of we make as a medium to spread and expand on based on the players' interests, to make sure that we can utilize the platform to drive more positive change.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for coming to join the panel. I think if I had a wish for 2030, it would be there's a lot more collaboration with people working with each other, where leadership is not asked for, it's taken, and for this industry to step forward and show what more can be done across the wider cultural spectrum. I do have this idea when I worked on the Paris Agreement back in 2015, how business was ahead of policy and they pulled business forward. I do think on this agenda we face right now, where nature loss is dropping very fast, emissions aren't yet showing a sign of waning, but there is progress being made. We need to do all that we can, and I think that culture could be a way that you pull policy forward, and by getting people to show that the planet they want is one that is similar to the one that we have today, not the one we might have tomorrow, means the stories are ones that give us hope, that gives a sense of possibility and positivity. And if we just tell a story that's based on one where we have reduced resources that we have taken for granted, and the future looks and feels more dystopian, then I think the stories we tell become the stories that we move towards. So I think this industry tells stories better than anyone else in the world. And our role at UNEP is to support this industry to go further, faster. And I think with some of the people on this panel and the people in this room, I think we can do this. So let's stay positive. We have no other choice. And thanks for all you've done and all you're about to do, and for joining us on this panel today. And a massive thank you to Rick. Thank you to Sophie. Thank you to Laurent. And thank you to Jiwon. Thank you. Thank you.